All right. So have you ever thought about running your own business? Like, ever considered what it takes to make it in the world of business? Today, we're going to crack open an Australian textbook and see what makes business managers and entrepreneurs tick, really figure out what makes them successful.
It's funny how we kind of lump those two roles together as if they're basically the same thing. But
Yeah.
this textbook makes a really clear distinction, and understanding that difference might just change how you think about your own work, even if you're not like planning on launching a startup anytime soon.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what we really want to figure out today is what traits set these folks apart, right? Like, are great managers and entrepreneurs just born that way, or can you learn those secrets?
That's the big question.
Yeah. By the end of this deep dive, hopefully you'll have a better sense of whether you've got that entrepreneurial fire in you, or if you'd rather just, be the best manager you can be.
Exactly. And you might be surprised to find that the answer isn't so black and white. What I find fascinating is how much these roles can actually overlap. And, those gray areas are where things get really interesting.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so the textbook we're looking at lays out these pretty distinct definitions of business manager and entrepreneur. It's easy to think they're basically the same thing, like I said, but they're really not,
Not quite.
are they?
One analogy the textbook uses is comparing a manager to a steady ship captain.
Yeah.
The kind who's navigating familiar waters and minimizing risk wherever possible.
Okay.
The entrepreneur, on the other hand, is more like an explorer, charting new territory, embracing the unknown.
I like that. So the manager is all about keeping the ship running smoothly, making sure everything's on track,
Exactly.
while the entrepreneur is willing to sail off the map, in search of those uncharted opportunities.
Precisely. And I think at the heart of that difference is their relationship with risk. Managers are very calculated, assessing and mitigating risk wherever they can, but entrepreneurs are driven by a vision, even if it's not fully proven yet. And they're often willing to take much bigger risks to make that vision a reality.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The textbook then dives into this success checklist for aspiring business managers.
Hmm.
It's like this list of 12 traits they consider essential. Like, we're talking self-motivation, discipline, leadership, the whole 9 yards.
It's a pretty intense list.
It is. It's pretty intense. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder, reading through it, if you need to be some kind of superhuman to succeed in business.
Right. And I think that's where it's so important to apply some critical thinking.
Yeah.
These traits are definitely valuable, no doubt.
Sure.
But don't get discouraged if you don't feel like you embody all of them perfectly right now. There's no single mold for success.
For sure. For sure. The textbook actually uses the story of Carolyn Creswell, founder of Carman's Fine Foods, as a prime example of entrepreneurial success. Have you heard of her?
Oh, yeah. Her story is a classic example of what we often see with successful entrepreneurs. She started small, buying a struggling muesli business.
Really?
Yeah, not exactly a glamorous beginning.
Not at all. But she had this incredible drive, this clear vision for what Carmen's could become.
Yeah.
And, she faced some serious challenges along the way, even struggling to make payroll at times.
Right. And that's where the textbook's checklist maybe falls a bit short,
Okay.
because it doesn't fully capture that sheer resilience that's required to build a successful business from the ground up.
Makes you wonder if things like persistence and the ability to bounce back from setbacks are even more important than, say, perfect organizational skills or, being a super charismatic leader.
I think so. Creswell's story really illustrates that.
Yeah.
She had so many doors slammed in her face.
I bet.
But she just kept going. Supermarkets kept rejecting her products, but she didn't give up.
That maybe I think a lot of people would have thrown in the towel faced with all of that.
Yeah, but she had this almost stubborn determination to make her vision work.
It's inspiring, for sure. So then this brings us to an interesting question. The textbook really emphasizes initiative as like a key entrepreneurial trait.
Right.
But in Creswell's case, it seems like something even stronger was at play, right? Like that relentless drive to overcome any obstacle.
Definitely. It's more nuanced than just checking boxes on a list.
So are we saying the textbook is wrong then?
Not necessarily. It's just that the textbook lays out these valuable foundational concepts,
Yeah.
but it can't possibly capture every single variable that contributes to real-world success.
That makes sense. So beyond just checking those boxes on a list, what can we really learn from someone like Carolyn Creswell? What truly sets entrepreneurs apart?
I think that's where we go beyond those individual traits and look at the underlying essence of entrepreneurship. What are the core values, the driving forces that fuel their success? The textbook touches on concepts like shared vision, innovation, and enterprise.
Right. But I think it's helpful to go a bit deeper than those buzzwords and explore what they really mean in practice.
Absolutely. Let's take shared vision, for example. It's not just about, getting all your employees to agree with you.
Right.
It's about inspiring them to rally around a common goal. Think about Steve Jobs in the early days of Apple.
Yeah. It wasn't just about building computers, right?
No, it was about challenging the status quo, creating something truly revolutionary.
Exactly.
And Jobs was a master at cultivating a shared vision where everyone felt like they were part of something bigger than themselves.
Right.
And that's incredibly powerful. It's not about mind control or anything like that. It's about creating a culture of shared passion and purpose,
Yeah.
Getting everyone excited about the same goals.
For sure.
That kind of energy is contagious.
Absolutely. It's like this
Yeah.
magnetic force that pulls everyone in the same direction. Yeah.
Exactly. It's that intangible energy that binds a team together and, propels them towards a common goal.
Totally. And what about initiative? That's another big one on the textbook's checklist, right?
Yeah, initiative is all about seeing an opportunity and just seizing it,
Yeah.
even when it feels risky or uncertain. Okay.
It's about taking ownership, not waiting for permission or instructions.
So it's less about following a plan and more about forging your own path.
Precisely.
Mm.
Think about Carolyn Creswell again.
Right.
She didn't wait for someone to just hand her a successful business,
Right.
She saw the potential in a struggling company and took the initiative to turn it around.
And that often means stepping outside your comfort zone, right? Like doing things that feel a little bit scary.
Absolutely. Initiative often involves pushing boundaries, challenging conventions, and taking risks that others might shy away from. Yeah.
Speaking of risks, the textbook doesn't really address the potential downsides of, entrepreneurial ambition. It's all very positive and inspiring. I think it's important to acknowledge that there can be a dark side to this kind of relentless drive.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a fine line between being driven and being ruthless.
Right.
Not all entrepreneurs are ethical or, even particularly pleasant to work with.
Yeah, we've all heard those stories about, cutthroat CEOs who prioritize profits over people. Exactly. And that's something to be mindful of. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of chasing a vision, but it's crucial to maintain a strong sense of ethics and integrity along the way.
Totally. So how do you balance that ambition with a sense of responsibility then?
I think it's about being aware of those potential pitfalls, checking your motivations and making sure that your pursuit of success doesn't come at the expense of others.
It's like finding that sweet spot
Right.
where you're driven but not ruthless.
Exactly. And maybe that's where the role of a manager becomes even more critical.
Interesting. So you're saying a strong manager, someone who's more grounded and focused on ethical considerations, can provide a counterbalance to the sometimes unbridled enthusiasm of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, possibly. It's not about one being better than the other.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that both roles have their strengths and weaknesses.
And when those strengths are combined effectively, that's when the magic happens.
Exactly. That's when you see really remarkable things happen.
Thinking about this balance between entrepreneurs and managers, it reminds me of something we discussed earlier, the idea that the entrepreneurial spirit isn't limited to people who, start businesses.
That's right. You can be entrepreneurial in any field, any role.
Right.
It's about bringing that same creativity and willingness to take risks to whatever you do.
So even if you're not the CEO of a company,
Yeah.
you can still have that entrepreneurial spark.
Absolutely. You could be a teacher who's constantly innovating in the classroom,
Right.
an artist pushing the boundaries of their craft, or even someone working within a large organization who finds creative solutions to problems,
It's about bringing that same passion and energy to whatever you're doing.
And maybe inspiring others to do the same.
I love that. This whole discussion has been really eye-opening. It's made me think about my own work in a new light.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I have that entrepreneurial spirit? Am I playing it too safe?
And that's the beauty of this kind of deep dive, right? It's not about giving you all the answers.
Right.
It's about prompting you to ask yourself the right questions.
Okay, so going back to the original question then, do you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Like, what would you say to someone who's listening thinking, maybe this is me?
It's not a simple yes or no answer, It's about understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, your values and motivations,
Okay.
and being honest with yourself about what you're truly passionate about.
And what you're willing to risk to pursue that passion.
Exactly, because the entrepreneurial journey is rarely a smooth ride.
It's going to be bumpy.
Oh yeah, there will be setbacks, challenges, moments when you want to just give up.
For sure. But for those who persevere, who have that fire in their belly and that unwavering belief in their vision,
It can be the most rewarding experience imaginable.
it's like reaching the mountaintop.
Exactly.
So if you're feeling inspired after this conversation,
If you're starting to question your assumptions and reevaluate your path,
yeah,
that's a good sign. It means you're engaging with the material.
you're letting it spark something within you.
And that's the first step towards unlocking your own entrepreneurial potential.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of, business managers and entrepreneurs,
Yeah, what are some key takeaways that you hope our listeners are walking away with today?
well, I think the biggest one for me is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to success, right?
Absolutely. The textbook we looked at provides a useful framework, but, real life is messy and unpredictable.
For sure. And sometimes it's those unexpected challenges that really reveal our true potential.
Yeah, whether that potential lies in being a steady and reliable manager or like a visionary entrepreneur.
Exactly. Or maybe, as we discussed earlier, it's about finding a way to blend those two roles to bring that entrepreneurial spirit to everything you do.
I think the key is to be honest with yourself about your strengths and weaknesses, your passions and your fears.
Right. And to not be afraid to step outside that comfort zone, to experiment, to take risks.
Because even if you don't end up launching, the next billion-dollar company, you might discover hidden talents and unlock opportunities that you never even imagined.
Totally. So if this deep dive has sparked something within you,
If it's made you question your assumptions or consider new possibilities,
don't let that fire die out,
keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing yourself to grow.
because who knows where that journey might lead you.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of business and entrepreneurship.
Until next time, keep those entrepreneurial spirits burning bright.